Hi, good evening. Welcome back to our usual Raising Hope Friday night session. And tonight we are raising hope together with DTB Services. I'm so honored and glad to be able to invite one of my buddy, Dehumo Bickersteth, the founder of DTB Services and also the principal consultant, to talk about building capacity through adversity. Yeah. Hey, hi, Dehumo.
Hi, Josh.
Nice. Thanks for taking time to join these sessions. I just I was preparing and for tonight's session, I just for all the participants out there. In fact, myself and Dehumo, we were classmates, okay, schoolmates during our tertiary education in Singapore. Okay, and he's so good, and then both of us are trained in sound engineering, and in terms of the spirit of excellence and in terms of precision, Dehumo is always top in the class, and then end up both of us are not doing music. I mean, we are not working in the music industry anymore, and but I'm aware that for the past 15 to 20 years, Dehumo has been in the training services and consulting. Okay, and one of his passion is about capacity building. And to lay the background or probably some rationale for Dehumo to understand, in fact, the pandemic has hit, globally, and in fact, impact the economy status. And probably you might have known that Malaysia is seriously impacted as well. And a lot of all these, breadwinners lost their job, retrenched, and even to an extent that, probably they've been in the professional life for more than 20 years, but then for the reason negative impact, they kind of like lost confidence to the extent that they don't even believing in themselves anymore. Yeah, Dehumo, tell us more, because I think this is your field of what do you call that? This is your field of work, and how can we help those in need in terms of capacity building?
Thank you, Josh. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the world is in a very interesting place with the kind of experiences that we've been having over the last 2 years, like you just described. And it's impacted lives pretty much across all sectors. Before I jump into kind of responding to the specifics about capacity, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that the concept of capacity is about the ability to hold so that you can give. So if you think of capacity as what you have inside you, because that allows you to know how much can you hold, and therefore how much can you give. And for most people, when they think of how much you can hold, they don't understand that what you can hold as a human being comes from 3 parts of who you are: your cognitive self, so your thinking self, your emotional self, and the social self, the self that comes out of your interaction. And one of the things to think about with adversity and with challenges and difficulty is the way it allows you to really connect with this part of you. Because in other times, when things are not so difficult, we kind of focus on just one time. In fact, we lose touch with all of this, and we're just coasting, we're just riding through, and we're not paying attention to how much we can hold or how we're expanding what we can hold. But when we encounter difficulties, when we encounter challenging situations, it forces us to suddenly pay attention to, it takes away all the distractions, and then we're forced to think, what's left? What's left is you. And how much you can hold. And you have the opportunity to actually expand that the more challenging the situation is. Because when the challenges go away, and they will go away, and this is the message, they will go away. When they go away, if the people who have responded to that challenge in the right way, by default, they've expanded their capacity.
So I mean, can I rephrase it? You are telling us, in fact, the challenges, the adversity actually help us to acknowledge the ability we already have, but because of the previous situation, we might have neglected or even ignored.
Correct. And not just the ability you have, but it's the capacity to develop abilities.
Wow. All right.
Because one thing is the ability that I have, which I might have had from when things were fine. But when I'm faced with real challenges, I have the opportunity to expand my ability, my capacity to develop abilities. I'll give an example. So one thing I like to say, and it's a cliche, time is your best friend because nothing is forever. Everything comes to pass.
Yeah,
so for those people out there who are feeling really stretched and they feel like there's no hope, time is your best friend because everything comes to pass. It will come.
Yeah, at least we can acknowledge that, the pandemic will come to pass. All these challenges will come to pass. First of all, we need to acknowledge that.
Exactly. So just first tell yourself and let yourself understand and accept the fact that everything comes to pass.
All right.
In that time where this is going on, the next question you have to ask yourself is, what am I doing with the time? Because it will pass. But what am I doing with that time?
Right. If I'm wasting time, or am I making use of it?
Exactly. If you're in a tunnel, maybe you got locked into this tunnel, dark, no light, nothing. It's completely dark. But you believe, in fact, that there's a light at the end of that tunnel. You can't see it yet, but there's a light at the end of that tunnel. So eventually, in time, that light is there. You can get to that light. If you just sit down in that tunnel and do nothing and just think, it's so dark here, I'm sure there's a light there, but it's just really dark. And you're just thinking about it and you're not, that time will pass and you would not change.
And you're still stuck there.
Still stuck there. Yeah. If you take any action, including just crawling one step at a time, one hand at a time, towards the direction where you think the light is, the point is, eventually you would get to that light as long as you keep taking that step. So the critical action for when you're in adversity is to pay attention to the fact that you're not waiting. And you're not focusing only on how you're feeling and in your head.
Wow, thank you. I think this is so inspiring, and in fact, to the audience out there, I just want to enlighten you a bit. Anything worth doing, it's worth doing, or even fail for the first time, as long as you keep moving.
Yes.
Is that what you are saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying. You have to keep moving if you want, because if you don't move, then you're not going to change the circumstance. Now, when you take actions, now this is where it gets very interesting. When you take actions, remember, you're coming out of your head. You need to focus on what you can control. There's so many things going on, like this is not there, that cannot be there. You can't do anything about some of those things. So why waste time thinking about it?
Yeah.
First of all, I'll give an example. So some people are applying for jobs and they've applied for 100 jobs and 300 jobs and they didn't get any results. And this is definitely something you can control, applying for it, and it's definitely an action, applying for a job, right? What you now need to think about is, how are you doing that?
How are you applying your job? What do you mean?
Correct. Are you applying yourself to the applying for a job, or are you just doing the application and hoping for the best? The way you're doing it, and this is where capacity building comes. So the burning platform is the adversity. Before that, you didn't bother. You didn't ask yourself, what can I do? What's good? What am I good at? You didn't have to, because you had a job and you were just doing it. Adversity kicks in and you're now forced to ask yourself, okay, so what should I do? How should I do this? When you start thinking that way, the way you apply for the job should be focused on what you're trying to achieve with the job. So if you don't succeed the first time, you change, you tweak, you keep improving, you keep saying, okay, maybe I should interview differently. Maybe I should change my resume. Maybe I should adapt my resume. Anyway, there's nothing else you're doing, you might as well do that properly.
Yeah, rather than just keep repeating the same thing and going processes again.
And the energy is coming from the fact that you're focusing on, I can't control how the person who receives my resume responds, but I can control what they see. I can't control how the person who I'm talking to responds, but I can control how I show up. So you focus on what you can control by changing, moving, improving, and that process that's driven by the fact that you're responding to adversity through this action of applying and that's actually, you don't realize it, is expanding your capacity.
True. Meaning even though you're doing something similar, but actually you are perfecting the process, or even making the resume even better.
Your interview skills to interview better, you're reflecting on yourself better. But what I'm trying to get is very subtle, very interesting. The energy that you're using to do that is coming from a place of adverse challenges, difficulties. So you're not doing it because you're comfortable. You're doing it under immense pressure. And yet you're able to try and improve your conversation and tweak your resume and focus yourself to do that. That is capacity. That's resilience. You're able to think even when you're under emotional distress. You're able to stay focused on something even when outside your room, the world is collapsing. You can't control some things, but what you can control, if you focus on it, that helps you become resilient. That helps you build your capacity to respond. And the interesting thing, back to that tunnel, as you take actions on the things you can control, you're creating opportunities for new things to become possible. Yeah. And because you're invested in that, eventually you get to that light.
Yes.
Now, this is the trick. That's where the hope is. Because as you keep doing that, it's reinforcing energy within you, because it's not just about the fact that this person rejected your application. That becomes less relevant to you, because you're now thinking, oh, I should tweak your focus, I should tweak my resume this way. I should talk to this person about this. Maybe if I do it this way instead. And because you're doing all that, suddenly the least place you expected it, someone says, hey, why are you asking me that question? Oh, I'm trying to apply for what job? Hey, I've got the job here.
Yeah, who knows, you might end up, meeting someone with the right job and stuff like that. Yeah.
Because you're taking steps. You're moving in a direction with intent. You're investing yourself and you're focusing on what you can control.
I'm going to stop you right there. In fact, for all the participants out there or the audience out there, in fact, Dehumo brought up a very interesting point. Rather than using the energy to complain, to depress, to get depressed, or blaming yourself, or even everything else, why not use or transfer the energy to perfect the skills? Add more some of all this action to ask a question. Who knows, by this process, in fact, you finally get the opportunity.
Correct. One of the things that happens when we're in a bad place, is we allow that bad place to overcome us, and we attract more of that badness, if you know what I mean. The energy that we're attracting, we attract that energy. And that continues to reinforce the bad place that we're in. And it's very difficult to pull yourself out of it. So I'm going to talk about the fact that one of the critical actions that you need to take when you're in a bad place is knowing how and when to ask for help.
True. When you really cannot sustain and take it anymore,
Even when you're trying to take actions. So when I talked about taking actions that's going to move you forward, I'm in no way suggesting that you're doing this on your own. Remember, I talked about even when you're asking somebody and you're telling someone, that's you asking for help. And it's the different ways to ask for help. It's like, give me feedback on this. I'm trying to work on this. Or specifically, you want help for something. But you need to understand that you're a social being and you're in a social system. You draw energy from that system. So if you want the energy from that system to help you build your capacity, to build the resilience, to focus on the action so you can produce the results you want, make sure that when you interact with that energy. Now, let me explain what I mean. I don't mean that you make it up. You stay authentic, but you focus your energies, your conversations and interactions on what you can control.
True.
Now, what a lot of people do is they spend a lot of those conversations talking about what's not working, talking about how bad they're feeling. I share your thing. I'm also the same. We're invested in that. But actually, at this point, when that is happening, what we need to be focused on, the energy we need to be drawing to ourselves is the same kind of energy that we need to stay invested in the actions. So we're talking about what we can control. We're talking about how we can control it. And we're seeking help to help us control it. That's the conversation. So if you find yourself if you find yourself not taking actions, if you find yourself sitting down and locked in your thoughts for too long,
containing the negativity.
Just catch yourself. Just if you're thinking for too long and it's drawing you down, just catch yourself. Just catch yourself. And just remember this and just do something around what you can control. Number two, and this is an off-tangent peak, but I think it's very important. A lot of people underestimate this. I can tell you this from my own personal life and personal experience. The human being is a whole system. You might be finding that your thoughts are cloudy, your emotions are drained. I'm telling you right now, go outside, go for a run, go for a walk. If you're able to, and if you can't go outside, then do it in your house. I wait for you to come back and tell Raising Hope your testimony on this, but I can tell you that the clarity that if you just, again, that action of I'm not going to just sit down and think about this. I'm going to get out of the bed, and I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm going to go for a run. I'm going to cycle. I'm going to do something. That exercise has tremendous benefit for your emotional capacity and your mental capacity. It's not a joke. I can tell you that from experience. So the key message here is don't sit down
and do nothing.
When you start to do something, focus on what you can control. Don't try and do things about things that you cannot control. If you start focusing on what you can control, ask for help. Don't try and do it alone.
Okay. Wow. So you're telling us, in fact, the adversity help us to be self-aware on our own capacity, and in terms of changing by doing nothing to putting things into action, in fact, will help us to build the capacity. In fact, no matter how the circumstances, indeed, building capacity, it's very essential, correct or not? I'm just reframing from here. I try to understand even it is a change of job to a different kind of nature. In fact, the capacity within yourself is what you're holding, and it's what essentially yours.
Correct. It's your and that capacity is what allows you to respond to the difficulty, to the adversity. But it's also the adversity that allows you to recognize just how much capacity you've got. And to improve on it. And the way that I like talking about it is, it might be a bit of a cliche, but you know what? With that, iron sharpens iron, right? Or in a better way. How would you know how good you are if you don't have a challenge to show you? So if you're sitting down thinking, I'm not strong. Well, this is a chance for you to understand just how strong you are. If you're sitting down thinking, you were thinking I'm very strong. Well, this is the time to prove it. This is the time to show it. Because ultimately, when things are good, there's no test. When there's no test, there's no growth. There's complacency. I've done this before. I keep doing it the same way. What I like about challenges, and I've had a lot of this in my life, is whenever you do what I said, it comes to pass. When you take action and overcome it, as in come out of it on the other side while working through it, when you look backwards in time, I'm telling you, you look at the next time an adversity comes to you, your approach will be different, because you suddenly realize that, you know what, I might have hated it when it was going on, but because of the way I responded to it, I'm almost thankful that it happened. Now, I'm not saying it was a good thing when I was going through it, but when I look back now, where I am today, I couldn't be here if that didn't happen to me.
True. Wow.
When you think of what's going on with you now, ask yourself, 2 years from now, 6 months from now, 1 year from now, what do you want to say? To say that, you know what, I hated it when it was going on, but looking at what I'm doing now and what I'm able to do now, I'm almost thankful that I went through that.
Yeah, indeed. For all the audience out there, this is a tough time, but then don't waste the opportunity. It could be a chance for us to even, get better of ourselves, or even perfect some skills.
Or discover.
Yeah, or do something, so even, some, I know that some of these, we do have some people, talking about this in the community, saying that, they lost their job. The industry is not going to sustain anymore. It might, it could disappear. But anyway, so that actually the adversity happened, and they help them to change actually their route. They could be less confident when they started, but then while they're taking action, growing, indeed, they have becoming someone they couldn't even imagine they would.
Exactly. And they would never have taken that step if this hadn't happened. They just have continued in the old way, and like a lot of people are in jobs that they hate.
Yeah,
they just hate waking up in the morning, and now they've lost those jobs, and they're feeling like, oh God, I lost my job. But actually, instead of thinking, oh, I lost my job, think, oh, now no choice left. I have to figure out what I want to do. So I better not go and do the same kind of thing that I hated for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for me to rethink this.
Yeah.
To approach this differently. And one thing is, and it's like another cliche, you only lose when you stop trying.
True. Yeah.
You only lose when you stop trying. So it doesn't matter how many times you fail. If you stop trying, then yes, you're a failure. But if you keep going, when you succeed, all the other times you failed were just stepping stones to success.
Yeah. Wow.
And that's why I keep saying that you might not see the light, but it's there. You might think it's very dark, but it's come to pass. It will go away.
Mm-hmm.
And because we know this for a fact, the one thing you can control is what you're doing with the time you've been given right now. What help are you seeking? What actions are you taking? How are you responding? Any response that you do in this context, by default, because of the severe nature of what the context is, you're expanding your capacity, your ability to respond in future to other things. And I think it's going to be interesting to see where we end up overall in the world. But I think for everyone out there that's feeling like it's the end, it is the end of a phase and the beginning of another phase. Can you see it?
Wow, I think that's so powerful indeed. One last thing I'm going to ask you is that, I think some of these people lost their confidence is because they've been in the industry for more than 20 years and stuff like that. But because due to retrenchment and stuff like that, they are actually asking whether they still need to stay within the same industry, or they really need to find something else. But in terms of capacity building, what are some of these advice you could tell them, how they can move from, how could they move from here, whether or not to build something new, or even to remain in the same industry and stuff like that.
So there are three ways to think about. So there's something I talk about a lot when it comes to work experiences. The question I like to ask people, 15 years experience, 20 years experience, I'll ask the question, what are you good at? What problem are you able, what is the one problem you're able to solve, the problem you're really good at solving that? And most people struggle to answer this because most people in their jobs can tell you what they do, but they can't tell you what they're expert at. And
they can tell you, they could probably tell you, oh, this is what I'm doing every day.
Yes. If I ask you, what are you an expert at? What are you good at? What problems are you solving? Most people can't answer that question easily because that's not the way they approach the job. And this is very important because if you know what kind of problems that you can solve, then you know what people are willing to pay you for. Right? That's number one. Number two, if you've had any experience in jobs at all, your experience in a job exists at 3 levels.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the capacity, the way to think about your choices come up. The first level is the domain where you're doing the job. So it could be financial services, it could be hospitality, it could be frontline, the domain. That means the context of it. The second is what you're actually doing there. So it could be sales, it could be product development, it could be, but it's what you're doing in that domain. You're building, you're writing code, whatever it is. And then the third is the you that's doing it, your cognitive, social, and emotional self,
mm-hmm.
and what that stands for. So what I explain to people is that from the day you're born to now, that center self is growing, is developing. Doesn't matter what job you're in.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what we were talking about up until now when we're talking about capacity. We're trying to understand how strong that center self is, regardless of what's going on around us, because that's the self that's responding to the activities and to the opportunities in the domain.
Yeah.
Then the next is the activities. What kind of professional activities are you inclined for? Engagement, development, like creating stuff, executing stuff, just getting stuff done. And if you start reflecting that way, you start asking yourself questions like, do I really like interacting with people a lot, or do I like tinkering with stuff a lot? And this is an opportunity to start thinking about that, because that's going to help you. And then finally is, what domain do you have the experience in? And that's actually, in my opinion, not the most relevant when you're in this position. So for some people, they'll be like, oh, I've been 10 years in this industry doing X. I don't know if I can do anything else. My question to them is, well, step one, are you the one doing that? Yes. Okay, that means that you have tons of skills and capabilities that you don't realize. Were you managing people? Yes. So you have brilliant ability. I had a conversation with someone about the importance of relationship management in your professional career. And the context of relationship management extends from stakeholder management to sales, to team management. And I said to the person, if we take a step back, forget about the domain, and just look at your ability to manage relationships in work and out of work. Let's just reflect on that. And we spent a few weeks reflecting on that. And then the person suddenly realized that, oh my God, I can do this almost anywhere. Just throw me in the middle of nowhere.
I think it's so inspirational. In fact, you enlighten me, Dehumo, or I believe for all the audience out there, is that, when we start reflecting on our, capability or even capacity, indeed, the nature of industry or business doesn't matter anymore. Right, you are good at engagement or even marketing. In fact, you can survive in any industry at all.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly, and that self will come out regardless of what level you're working at. So I'll share this story, this example I gave. So someone who's really naturally a problem solver, likes to create solutions. He's a janitor, and they have this other janitor working the same floor. Both of them, I used this example recently, both of them mopped this part of the floor where there was a stain. The first guy mopped it and went on his way. The stain didn't go, but he mopped the floor. The second guy mopped it, the stain didn't go. He tried again, the stain didn't go. Then he took a brush and kind of scrubbed it, and the stain still didn't go. Then he went back into the closet and looked for a different kind of solvent and then tried it, and the stain went. What's the difference between these two janitors? They're both janitors. They're both doing the job.
The other, in fact, is actually look at the problem, but then he tried different ways, different approaches to try to, solve the problem, really solve the problem, rather than just conducting a performance or a job.
That is what we're looking for. That's what you want to activate within yourself. Because whether you put that guy in a janitor role or you make him a driver of a car, if you make him a driver of a car, do you know how he would respond? Before you pick up the CEO, he's going to check traffic. He's going to go and talk to the CEO's PA to say, when is the meeting? He'll probably have the schedule. He'll probably say, we need to leave in 10 minutes. And then the CEO is running late. And he looks at the schedule and say, oh, well, if he's running this late. Can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He's a driver.
Mm-hmm. But he actually have the skill or even the capacity to solve the problem. Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to get at. So it's not so, and I can tell you that there are people who are in more sophisticated positions or have more experience that don't approach that job this way.
True.
And that's what I meant by when you start reflecting and identifying this, what triggers you this way at this time when you're trying to make a transition, it allows you to actually lean in and identify opportunities that initially you would have discounted.
Mm-hmm.
You just said, no, that's not for me because it's not in this. No, it's not. It's a very, very interesting way. It's obviously more complete, more nuanced that I've talked about now, but it's important to remember that as long as you're a human being, so the person in the center, you've got capacity, you've got capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And if you discount the domain on the outer circle and just focus on the next level, the activity, there's tons of opportunities for you out there, as long as you don't close your mind to it. The first step is change the energy.
Yeah. Wow. That is so important and so valuable, Dehumo. I think for all the audience out there, indeed, Better That's Malaysia with this Raising Hope campaign, we are working together, partnering with DTB Services to come up with some upskill training program for all the people out there, whether you are retrenched or even lost your job, but to get to know yourself a little bit more, identify your capability, and also to help you to build all this capacity. We'll be announcing the details soon. And last but not least, while we are at the end of the show, any advice or any encouragement you want to give to our audience out there, to encourage them. In fact, building capacity indeed is an essential despite all this adversity. But some last word from you to the audience out there.
Well, I think it will be just to, again, summarize, maybe just one, not so much summarize, but just to emphasize that one point, that adversity is it creates the conditions that allows you to build capacity, to expand your ability to respond, to build your resilience. There's no other way to know how resilient you are than if you're in a situation where you need to be resilient.
Yeah.
So, and one of the first things you need to take control of is your thoughts. Because if you don't pay attention to what you're spending your time thinking about, you might lose touch. And it's very hard to come back from that. So pay attention to what you're thinking about. And remember that a lot of your thoughts when you're in difficult situations are based around how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not feeling that way, you'll be thinking differently. So when you start paying attention to your thoughts, immediately you'd realize that you're paying attention to how you're feeling. That's why you're thinking that way. And once you connect with how you're feeling, then remember what we said on this episode. Get out of your head, do something.
Yeah, rather than just consuming all the negative energy, but why not turn or transform the energy to do something positive, and then you can change the scenario.
Exactly, do something.
Thank you.
Including as simple as get out and run, to plan your next action based on what you can control by talking to somebody. Talking to somebody.
Like that, yeah. All right. Well, thank you. This is such a precious moment, to have it with you. And thank you for your time. And also, for all the audience out there, we'll be announcing very soon that, BDM will have a collaboration with DTB Services. Hopefully, the program will help you to find ways to raise hope or even to build a better you. Thank you.
Thanks.